This episode is sponsored by SmartVestor. Connect with an investing pro for free at RamseySolutions.com/invest. You're listening to Ramsey Everyday Millionaires, where we talk investing, retirement, building wealth, and outrageous generosity.
Today's question comes from Nate in Ohio. I'm learning about investing and I want your input on something. I hear how guy number one can start at 20 years old and invest $100 a month compared to guy number two who starts at 30 and invests $200 a month. Guy number two will never catch up because of the compounding interest. If I have debt but also want to invest, can't I do both and benefit from the compounding interest? I have over $100,000 in debt from college, and I do not believe I can pay that off by the time I'm 30. But I don't want to wait until I'm 30 to start investing. What do you think? I love this question, and I wish I knew what his income was, because I would tell him, listen, the average person is getting out of debt in 2 years. And let me just add to that, because this is just personal. This is me talking. Even if it took you longer, my husband and I, when we paid off our debt, it took us 7.5 years to pay off the debt. Then we turned around and saved up our expenses. Then we turned around and bought a house. We were in our mid-30s before we started investing. And I'm telling you, we're going to be okay, and you're going to be okay too. So that's
You're
just
not
put
only
that
going to
on.
be okay, you're going to be a millionaire.
Listen, come on, Dave. All right,
Well, I mean,
let's put that on the shelf.
No, it really is.
It is.
I mean, it's the math. So
Yeah.
Here's the thing. What you are talking about in your life, Jade, what you and Sam did, was you freed up your most powerful wealth-building tool, which is your income. Mm-hmm. And compound interest is very important, and getting started early is the reason we put those charts out, is to motivate you to get yourself out of debt so you can get started early.
Right.
But what you lost in compounding interest during the 7.5 years of you getting out of debt, you will more than make up doing that because you're putting a whole lot more into investments instead of freaking $465,000 of personal debt.
That's exactly right. And that's what people forget about. They're investing up to the match, or they're doing 5 or 10%. But the way we teach, you're doing 15% and beyond once you get past baby step 6. Not to mention, I think this is important to talk about too, Dave, when people kind of rearrange the steps, right? They're like, I don't want to save yet. I don't want to pay off debt. I want to make sure I'm getting that investing in. We find that when you don't do this thing right, when you keep that debt around, right, debt equals risk. So there's now more risk in your life. There's more that can go wrong. And if you don't take the time to build up that 3 to 6 months of savings, when you have an emergency, because you will have to look to your investments, your 401k, and all of that to cover your emergencies. And we're seeing that actually right now more and more people are borrowing from their 401ks for hardship, and they're pulling out $5,000. And I'm thinking to myself, listen, if you had just followed the baby steps, you wouldn't have to pull out $5,000. You'd have it in baby step 3.
Exactly. And here's the thing. If the theory that you're espousing, sir, worked, we would find that in the data as we talk to millionaires. We would find millionaires who are still paying off their debts, but have become millionaires with the power of compound interest by starting before they paid off their debts.
And we don't find that.
And we don't find that. We find that the typical millionaire got clear of the debt and dumped money into investments. Pretty simple. It's a very simple primitive equation. But there's something that happens here. It's the loss of focus when you're trying to do two things at once, and you end up sucking at both of them. That's what it amounts to.
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying to do two different things at the same time: invest and get out of debt, and you're really not good at either one. And so the end result is not the same probability of becoming a millionaire, the same probability of having a substantial net worth. So there's when you have gotten clear of permanently and never go back to debt, it's a big boost for your wealth building.
Yes.
It's the reason that we've taught it this way for 30 years. And then the reason has been borne out in the actual data as we've studied the millionaires. So, yeah, if in other words, at the end of a 20-year story, 7.5 of which you were getting out of debt.
Yes.
12 and a half of which you will be building an emergency fund, buying a house, paying it off.
That's right.
And meanwhile, dumping 15% of your income into retirement. At the end of that 20-year story, you will have more money
Yes.
than you would have had you steadily invested a small amount while you stayed in debt for 17 years instead of 7.
That's right. Not to mention, there's another piece to this, Dave, there's so many pieces to this. When you make the choice to pay off your debt and say, I'm not going into debt anymore, let's pretend you didn't do that, right? And you did this guy's way. You have not said no to debt. So you're continuing to take on debt in different ways that have the ability to adversely affect your net worth and offset what you might be putting away in retirement. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because you're still taking out vehicles. You're still utilizing debt in a way that's negatively affecting you.
Exactly. Here's the problem. Just hit me. Here's the core issue in this email. I have over $100,000 in debt from college, and I do not believe I can pay that off.
Boom. There it is.
So the reason you're wanting to do this is you don't have hope.
Yeah.
It's the lack of hope.
Yeah.
It's not that you really think the numbers are better. It's that you don't think you can do it. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. It's a hope thing here, honey. It's not a math thing. So that you need to. Yeah, it took me a second. It was down there in that 5th sentence. Yeah, there was that hopelessness. There it is. Power of hope is something else. When you believe, you can run through a freaking brick wall, man.
Heck yeah.
You're the Hulk. There's nothing stopping you when you believe.
Thanks for listening to Ramsey Everyday Millionaires. Need help with your investments? Connect with a SmartVestor Pro at RamseySolutions.com/invest or click the link in the show notes. Ramsey Solutions is a paid non-client promoter of participating pros. Learn more at RamseySolutions.com/SmartVestor.